Dr. Goldston frozen? Oh,
Yeah,
no, there he is.
yeah. Can you see me? Are you frozen? Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can see you. You were frozen, then you unfroze, then you
Okay.
froze again, but you're back.
What about now?
It's fine, normal,
Okay.
normal. So,
Dina, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
here's Tina.
Do you not have video? There you go. There you are.
You're frozen again. Is he frozen?
Yeah.
Oh, that didn't sound creepy. Did that answer your question?
I couldn't hear you. You were just frozen. You're like,
All right, homie. I think it might be me. Give me a second. Give me a second. All right. All right. Is that better?
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Okay. My baby's been quiet all day long.
I know. It's cute.
It's
He's
crazy.
3 months, right?
Yeah, she's 3 months. Yeah.
Oh, she. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Little Sydney baby.
The what?
My Sydney baby.
Uh,
All right. So it's gonna wait. All right. I guess it's just the three of us.
I think Francis is coming.
Okay. All right. We'll wait. Yeah, this
So
weekend.
how do we give your podcast 5 stars? I didn't see where I can rate it.
If you go into Apple, let me see here. I will say that podcast is causing a ruckus.
Oh, is that the one you were going to post, not post, post, not post? Okay. But you just sent it. I haven't listened to it.
That's what she wanted. So that's what we got.
So the other thing is the forum that you invited us to, the one in Australia.
Yes.
Are you going to extend that invitation to the other cohort?
No, you can send the link. I sent it. No, I didn't. I lied. Yeah, if you send it to them,
I can send it. It's
I don't know how
okay.
to get in touch with those people. So yeah, just send them the link and then they can sign up for it.
Okay.
Yeah, the more the merrier, because they're encouraging me to reach out to my students.
No, I told someone about it. So in the other cohort.
I mean, yes, it's huge. I mean, and because they're giving me access to all the interviews they had with all the women, because it's pretty much like if you're female in leadership in supply chain, they're there around the world. They're at this conference, and to me, that's huge.
Well,
so I'm just
yeah,
I'm
it's quite a feat.
I'm absolutely honored. I'm still trying to figure out why they asked me to do the keynote, but I changed it like 5 times, but it'll be
impressive.
good. It'll be good.
It wasn't in person. I would have been able to actually go, and that.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm crushed. I'm crushed about that one, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, the things like that kind of opens up a lot of doors. I'm speaking with someone from Australia now, for next year, so that'll be awesome. I've always wanted to go to Australia, so.
Well, it's far for you. It's not that far. I mean,
really
less far for Californians.
Yeah, I know it
I
takes.
feel like a lot of Californians pop over to Australia.
Because how long did it take you to get to Hawaii?
I don't know, Dina's there right now, so
I think 5 hours, to be honest.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, because for me, it's like 12 hours.
yeah, that's a schlep, but
So
worth it.
Dina, did that email make sense?
Yes, and I'm just trying to figure out a pathway for the students and just seeing like what entry level opportunities I could sell when I receive them for them to see the bigger picture. So
Did-
I, as far as boots on the ground, I haven't had too much um, explanation or one-on-one time with employers to understand where the beginning of the pathway would go, if they're open to manager and training options for the students so they don't have to do, spend years in the labor intensive part just to get their foot in the door. So I'm just trying to figure out where that pathway leads,
Right. Because
like,
these students are like community college students, right? Or no?
yeah, they are, but the labor intensive part is where that's why it always falls off because they don't see the value in it. So I
Right.
mean, and especially Walmart, I don't know if they get lost in the shuffle working for such a big company like that, or if that company promotes quickly, or if they do have a strategic plan for students that are going to obtain their certifications. I just don't know all of that yet, so
Right.
just trying to kind of get a feel for, and the
Yeah,
pay.
reach out because I think that Walmart does have those manager and trainee programs established. And I think that if a student is focused on supply chain, then that's the differentiator for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's going to be their foot in the door, but you're not going to be throwing boxes for long.
That's, yeah, and I just wanted to gauge if it was something that, yeah, I don't know. I was just trying to gauge
But
a pathway basically, because I even work with K-12, and once things get better and we start going out there and speaking and advocating and working with partners, then I would be able to then, talk to younger students about
right,
it in our dual enrollment program, to advocate for it as well. So I'm just
right.
trying to get my feel.
But and it's funny that you mentioned that because that's what I talk about in that podcast. I talk about, I'm trying to get, more high schoolers within the discipline. I'm trying to get more minorities in the discipline. And, I say, how do I do that?
Yeah.
How do I make it appealing?
Yep.
I mean, they're on social media, but they're on social media for entertainment purposes. They're not on social media for education.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
was a really good podcast. I like that one. I watched that one. I think to get the younger students, the simulations that we do would attract a lot of them because that's how they learn nowadays. So if the high schools and the community colleges would invest in programs like that, I think that would really attract some of the students.
yes.
Stick with it, because they have some really good programs in the high schools. You'd be pretty amazed as to what they're teaching them. So like
Yeah,
cybersecurity.
and that's an excellent point in that, the whole gamification is one thing that I've been interested in, and one of I would say the most common, gamification tool is called the beer game. So that may not fly in high schools. So so we're gonna have to figure out another simulation tool, to get people interested, like high school
It-
students interested.
it's funny because I attended a regional, what I wrote on the regional seminar, and they were talking about how those industries are struggling and they just don't know what to do to get interest. So
Right.
they to kind of
Which industries?
like the logistics and supply chain.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, all of that is they're having a really tough time to fill those positions, and there's quite a few positions available in the Inland Empire. So, but if you look at the demographics of the people that work there, they either don't have the patience to, mentor or have the time because they're overworked. There's so many factors involved. They were also talking about today for internships under 18. That's a problem because sometimes there's employees that are formerly incarcerated, so that causes problems with students under 18. And
Oh,
yeah, so if they work with if there's a formerly incarcerated employee, which that is sometimes, that's the norm in that industry for some of the positions, they have to be careful. So there's a lot of issues.
see, I didn't think about that one.
Yeah.
What's going on with my wireless? I just have too many things open. Give me a second. Let me try to close some stuff out.
Wait, Dina, you're saying that industry is hard to fill and you're trying to kind of market it
Well,
and help
yeah,
people.
yeah, as part of my job and to continue to receive funding for my position, I'm like a liaison, or I support the industries and find the students and advocate for it.
Yeah, I know from reading your bio.
Yeah, but it's just hard to, and I have to know about the industries. My background's like sales and business, so for me to sell something, I have to know everything about it to overcome objections. So then I really have to dive in and figure all the ins and outs to be able to sell it to the students, and then they gain the interest, and then it's a whole thing. So, but that industry is very difficult. It's pretty difficult.
It's very difficult because people really don't know about it. Effectively, they can't connect the dots. So when you hear supply chain, you think, okay, I'm gonna be driving trucks, I'm gonna be working in a warehouse my whole life. Where that's not the case. I think that the biggest push that I've been trying to think about is I've been trying to appeal to the STEM. So, because a lot of the high schools around here, are focused on STEM education. Those are the people I'm reaching out to, in high school for 4-year for Penn State, for example. So because technology's taken over.
Yeah.
And whenever you say that when you say it's tough for people to fill positions now, just wait 2 years from now when all those people in the warehouse are going to retire.
Yep. Oh, yeah. That's what they're scared of right now. And I hear it all the time. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, those people, like those high schoolers, they're not gonna work in a warehouse. But if they are skilled in this industrial automation, if they're skilled in robotic process automation, if they're skilled in business process automation, you're going to be able to go into that supply chain industry.
Mhm.
Is management science the same? Is that a synonym for supply chain management?
No, so management science is essentially the statistics portion of supply chain management. That's where you're going to look at the quantitative aspects of supply chain management. That's where you're going to look at like the formulas and the forecasting aspects of it and things like that. And I actually teach managerial decision making. And I don't really go, we go into the statistical aspects of it, but we don't go into the statistics like we did back whenever I was in school. Because I explain to students that ERP systems do all this for you. I say, we're going to run through the calculation. I'm going to send you through the pain so that you understand where these numbers are coming from once the ERP system spits them out.
I see. Okay.
Right? You're not going to be memorizing the formulas and crunching the calculations on a TI-83, like I did. And it was at the point where, okay, I'm done with that exam. I don't have to worry about this anymore. That's what it was. That's the reality. But like I said, we're going to work together to understand these calculations. We're going to calculate triple exponential smoothing together, right? We're going to understand what the alpha factor is together. We're going to talk about standard deviation together. Now, let's see how it looks in the ERP system. Let's see how it looks in the real world, right? That's what you're going to be tested on. And that's how they're going to remember it. So whenever they're approached by a manager to say, oh, well, we want our previous demand to adjust quickly, to our forecast, our forecast to adjust quickly to our previous demand. Now they know that I have to increase my alpha factor higher to adjust quickly to last month's demand.
Okay.
Right? So now you understand the reasoning. I don't care about the calculations. I just care about where those numbers are coming from and the foundations.
Okay.
So that management science is kind of a requirement for pretty much every single supply chain program. It's that quantitative math heavy class that everybody hates. I hated it. I'll admit it. But I'm terrible in math, but if you explain the why, then the students understand it. And I've actually included what we call Tableau. So Tableau is a data visualization tool.
I've used it.
So yeah, we use Tableau for a good 3 weeks. But the input to Tableau is pretty much the statistics. Right? It's the numbers, it's the math. So once we spend 2 weeks on the math part, we're pretty much done with it. And we're using Tableau to understand how to visualize that data, how to communicate that data to leaders of the organization. Why do you ask that question?
Because I read that the Kennedy who lost in Massachusetts majored in management science at Stanford, and I just didn't know if that was if a major that was just synonymous with what we're studying, or if there was a separate aspect of it. So I just read that he had majored in it.
So the management science, that's for the math whizzes. They're just phenomenal in mathematics.
And I think he's 40, so he probably graduated 20 years ago. I don't even know if it's still called that.
Right. Well, there's still management science majors out there, but I think that a lot of programs have rebranded it to data analytics.
Oh, okay.
Because data analytics is huge in quant and math.
That also sounds more like computers. I don't know, just
right.
That it incorporates computers.
Management science, managerial decision making is kind of like that quant math.
Okay, thank you for explaining.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, Frances can't make it, but she just texted me.
Okay, so this week we're going to talk about project management, purchasing, and supplier management, and some of the foundational aspects of project management is what we refer to as a critical path. So there's videos on a critical path. There's videos on the PERT technique, which are the foundations. Now, one thing I do want to bring up is that the critical path and the PERT technique are traditionally used for what we call the waterfall approach, as opposed to the agile approach. Have you all heard of that? I know there was a question on that within the discussion this week.
Well, it's called traditional.
Right. So the traditional is the waterfall.
The waterfall.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
What's the definition? What does traditional project management mean?
It's like stability. There's stability versus flexibility. Like,
yeah, there you go. That's it.
Oh, okay.
So that traditional approach is what I refer to as a methodical step-by-step approach. It's a structured approach, like you said, where I have all the activities laid out, I have my due dates laid out, I have my milestones laid out, and I stick to that particular plan. Where with an agile approach, I am flexible, I can pivot, it is more iterative, which means that I can essentially make changes all the way up till that product is delivered. So in my career, I implemented ERP applications, and traditionally we use a traditional waterfall approach where we have all the steps that we have to complete, We have our timelines, and after a year, then we go live on the system and cross our fingers and hope it works. That's the reality. But we do have checkpoints along the way where we say, okay, every 3 months, we're going to run what we call a pilot to test what we've done to make sure that works. Then we make adjustments. But I always say, I'm a big sports guy, so I always say it's like it's spring training. But we don't know we don't know how things are really going to work. We don't know how people are going to react until opening day. Right? So it's like, oh, preseason starts today. It's like preseason. Everyone's kind of going half speed and going through the motion and say, okay, yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm warmed up. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. My arm's good. But until that first week 1 of football season, that's when it's the real deal. And that waterfall approach, and that's, in my opinion, that's kind of where we see all those failed ERP projects come to light, because you're preparing for a year, but it's not prime time until you flip that switch and go live, and your 5,000 employees are on the same system, banging that system with transactions, right? Where with a pilot, I have 10 people running through the motions just to make sure that these steps are working.
And then what? Then it turns agile, though.
Well, but no, with the agile, but because we still say it's waterfall, because you're still going through the motions. You're not deploying anything. Nothing's really live.
Oh, so you just sort of stop and then restart.
Correct.
Like get your ducks in a row and then move on.
Correct. And nothing is really usable. Nothing is used real time until that year go live, until we flip the switch. Where with an agile approach, like you said, I do have 3 months, and I test it, and whatever works, it's live. People are using it, and we go 3 months, flip it live. Make changes to what's broken, add these other functions, flip it live. Make changes, add these functions, flip it live, and we keep flipping until we're done. Right? So now we have a usable product. We're learning from our mistakes. We are pivoting. We're iterating every 3 months, hypothetically, right? So that's the difference, where we are creating a usable product in phases, and people are using those products in phases, as opposed to okay, we're going to implement all these things, and then at this date we're going to flip the switch and now everyone uses it. So that's the difference between agile and waterfall. And agile is used a lot within technology, a lot.
When would you not use it?
There's no one size fits all approach. And I would say that I've had identical companies in the same industry with the same number of employees, with the same functions they used, but because of the culture, this culture could do agile, or this culture has to do waterfall.
Yeah, that's all. I think we talked a lot about that in our discussions.
Right.
Culture.
So Intel's a technology company. They get it. We implemented an ERP system using Agile, Intel, where I have a similar company like Siemens. I mean, both of them are massive. Both of them are billion-dollar companies, but Siemens does not have that Agile mindset. They don't get Agile. They've never heard of Agile. They have the same model. They're implementing the same exact modules, but we have to use waterfall. We have to use something they're familiar with.
So you have D-Day, sort of like the waterfall. The flip the switch day. You don't stop and start with Siemens.
Yeah, so it was a flip the switch. It was a methodical approach. We say, okay, based on all your people, based on all your sites, it's going to take us 12 months to flip the switch for you. With Intel, we say we're going to, we have to, the agile approach, we say we have all these requirements. How many of these requirements can we implement in 3 months, hypothetically? Out of these 400 requirements, we can do 30. Okay, let's work on those 30. At that timeline, now we have a discussion. We test that we test those functions. Those functions that work, they're live. They're being used, right? So that's why I'm a huge fan. That's why I'm a huge fan of Agile, because you can see if it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of organizations, I mean, if you've heard of SAP, you've heard people say, "Oh, SAP is the most horrible system on earth," but it's the most used application in businesses around the world. So something's working. Maybe it's you. But and I will say that, I mean, that's half joking, half seriousness, in that most cases failed implementations aren't, it's not the technology, it's the people, it's the culture, it's the adoption. The people have to use it. You know, I can set up bulletproof processes, but if the people aren't going to use it, if they're going to stay in Excel spreadsheets, if they're going to stay in their old systems, implementation is going to fail. It's going to fail. You know, so it goes down to the adoption of the organization, and that comes into that comes into project management. And that, how is a project manager going to influence the people to adopt to this project? Use Dina's example that she just used. Dina has a, how am I going to say? I'm going to say my supply chain, my community college supply chain project, right? So she is managing a project. She has to increase adoption of this supply chain discipline within her institution to get funding, right? Is that correct? A correct scope statement?
Yeah, they could assign us something like that. Once they become privy to what we could do, if they wanted us to focus solely on struggling industries and bring up our metrics.
Right. So using Dina's example, I can create a waterfall approach, or I can create an agile approach. With a waterfall approach, I can have all these steps that Dina could lay out and say that I'm going to have all these steps laid out, and I'm going to go live in 4 months. But Dina doesn't know who's going to sign up after she goes live.
Well, that sounds very stressful.
That's project management. That's why the project manager get paid the big bucks. And or you can have an agile approach where Dina could say, okay, at the end of every month, I'm going to have these 3 or 4 things completed. I'm going to roll them out throughout the community college, and I'm going to see what works. If these 2 things don't work, I'm going to pivot, make adjustments, and now I'm going to roll out those changes next month. That's where that iteration comes in. Make changes, roll it out. Make changes, roll it out. Make changes, roll it out. Right? But the most important thing within Agile, because you keep rolling things out. Okay, can you go on mute? Is that whose background noise is that?
I'm gonna do the windows, some of the windows as well. We still have to make in the kitchen.
Not you. Lisa, is that you or somebody on the phone?
But you don't have to. It will.
Is somebody Zoom bombing us?
I don't know.
No, I'm all alone.
Oh, it's Carrie. Oh, man. All right,
Oh, it's Carrie.
Carrie. All right, yeah, I muted her. Um, so, so the most important piece to an agile project is identifying a definition of done. Because we continue to roll things out, I have to define what the definition of done is. You know, so in Dina's project, she has to say, okay, when am I going to be done trying to promote, you know, this project, this supply chain project? You know, is her definition of done when I have enrolled, when I have 50 students, you know, hired by Walmart? You know, but she has to define that. You know, she has to work with her team to define that. And that's essentially the difference between the waterfall approach and an agile approach. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does that make sense, Dina? Is that a yes? Okay. All right. So that's kind of the, you know, what we're talking about when we discuss project management. I mean, there's a lot more to project management, but I mean, we're just covering project management within a week. I mean, there's doctoral programs on the project management discipline alone. You know, so it's a specialization just like supply chain management. You know, it's very broad in scope. You have a lot of different situations that occur. And whenever I teach project management as a course itself, the first day of class, I say, all this stuff we're going to read in the book, I say 30% of this, only 30% of this is really going to happen. The 70% is going to be how you deviate, right? It's going to be how do you mitigate risks? It's going to be how do you handle situations in the time of uncertainty? And I would say that project managers have been challenged within the last few months. I just wrote a peer reviewed journal article on project management in the time of COVID. That was the focus. That was the focus of a journal article of how project managers are going to handle it. Say it again.
That'd be interesting to read.
Yeah. So yeah, I can actually post that, but remind me if you don't see it in the next couple of days.
Because it seems just like this has upset all the standards that have been put in place.
So the gist of, I need to charge my phone, my laptop.
Your battery.
Yeah. So the gist of the journal article was that I did a survey to say for traditional face-to-face project teams, once individuals had to move virtual, what things did not go so well, what things went well, and what approaches that have not previously been implemented were implemented because of COVID. Like what emerged just because of this pandemic that was positive for the organization. And what I talked about within the article was uncertainty management planning, where we talk about risk management planning all the time, but risk management planning is future state. Like we're anticipating this. We know that this could happen. But uncertainty management planning is that this is a current state. Uncertainty management planning today is we don't know how much longer this pandemic is going to happen. We don't know how much longer we're going to be impacted by this. And that whole uncertainty management planning comes into, okay, what steps do we have to take now? Because it's unknown. It's an unknown right now. You know, and I was going to talk about that in that keynote, but when I looked at the data again, I found that millennials and Gen Zs, they seen that because leaders of organizations were reaching out to them to coordinate Zoom calls, to coordinate town hall meetings, they felt empowered. they felt a sense of inclusion. They felt a sense of belonging because leaders were reaching out to them for help, right? And now they're more willing to share their ideas. Now they're more willing to share, the innovations that they're thinking about. And that keynote is centered around that. And that keynote is talking about shared leadership. And shared leadership in that everyone is accountable for leadership competencies within the organization. And I also make a point on the podcast that I just posted, where this whole diversity and inclusion discussion goes outside of race and gender. The age is a input as well, because I feel that those thoughts are coming from the Gen Zs. The innovative thoughts and ideas are coming from the millennials. Because technology is taking over every single industry, that's where those innovations, that's where those differentiators, that's where those competitive advantages are coming from. They're not coming from the 55-year-old, male that's the CIO, that's the CEO. They're not coming from them. They're coming from the employee that he has no clue what that person's name is. That's where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about on that keynote. And I actually shared it. I had to actually record a draft, and I shared it to my wife. And she says, "Why are you talking about something that's obvious?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "I see this all the time." I say, "Well, why is nothing being done about it?" I said, "That's why I'm talking about to leaders of organizations around the world. I'm talking about what you're feeling, but you can't say it. I can." They're wanting me to say it. They invited me to do the keynote so I can say it. Where if she said within her organization, she won't get fired, but she's going to get overlooked for promotions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, things like that. That's why things I talk about on diversity and inclusion, that's why I'm putting it out there. And that's why I posted on LinkedIn. I say, don't be afraid to comment. I say, that's why we have a problem right now. Nobody wants to say anything. Everybody's afraid to speak up. Mm-hmm. And the host, Sherry shared her story of why she left the industry. She said that she had a peer that same exact role. They shared the same exact role. He was getting paid more than she was. And I might be murdering her story, but it's on the podcast. But, she said that she put both credentials up side by side, listed everything out. Her credentials were better than the males. He said the manager took the stuff, threw it back in her face. And at that point,
Is this the supply chain queen, Sherry?
Yes. So at that point, she said she was done. And now she's the big. I'm not going to say she's she's the biggest name in supply chain right now. She's killing the game right now. Right. But that's what I would say this was by far the best interview I've done. This is the best podcast I've done because we both laid it all out there.
Mm-hmm.
We left nothing behind. And we're, like I said, we're sharing our story. We are saying what people want to say, but they can't.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where that conversation came from, but anyway. But the whole thing is that the concept of shared leadership is just not at the executive level; it's also at the project management level. And also, if you want to talk about supplier relationship management, you can talk about shared leadership at the business partner level as well. You know, so if I'm sharing accountability, if I'm sharing leadership decisions with my business partners being my suppliers, I have a win-win. We both have skin in the game. If I do well, you do well, Mr. Supplier. If I suffer, you suffer, Mr. Supplier. If you do well, I do well. We have shared leadership, we have shared accountability. But many companies, very, 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 very few companies do that because they don't trust their suppliers. I don't know what you're telling me is true or not. I don't know what you're hiding. Very few people, very few businesses do that. But the ones that do, they're losing their industry because they collaborate. They know what their business partners are doing. So they'll know if their supplier is upcoming on a shortage of raw materials, for example, right? They'll go to other suppliers, as opposed to cutting the purchase order to that supplier, and now they're on back order. They're sharing data with the suppliers. So now the supplier can staff its manufacturing facility, and now I know for a fact I'm getting my product when I need it. You know, and that comes into supplier relationship management. And I've had companies where that's that project. There's project managers that manage internal projects, and then there's project managers that handle those business partner relationships. So I have a supplier project manager, if you will, right? So I could have five or six of my major suppliers, and my product manager handles those 5 or 6 major suppliers because they make up 80% of my raw materials. You know, that the remaining 20%, that's a rounding error. That's industry term. That's a rounding error. If they stock out, big deal. I got my main suppliers. They can give me an alternate product. So if I wanted to, those 5 or 6 suppliers can pretty much source 100% of my raw materials. So I'm going to have an individual to manage every single one of those suppliers. And, you know, that is the discussions that we have within this discipline. And going back to your point of management science, that's when we can actually look at the data and share that data with our suppliers to say, we're forecasting that we need this much material. We're going to need this material on the 30th of September. If you can't meet that, let me know.
Well, that was sort of what our simulation was.
Right.
But you kind of have to jockey, you know, hedge your bets a little bit.
That's supply chain management. Right? And it's an absolute headache, but when it works,
it's rewarding, I'm sure.
Exactly.
It's like a perfectly oiled machine, but otherwise it can be a nightmare. Like
it's an absolute nightmare. And it's an understanding that, like, so for purchasing, we know that forecasts are never accurate. Never.
Right.
Never. We're in the pursuit of reducing the forecasting error. Right? That's the goal. And if you can increase that collaboration as much as possible, you're going to reduce that forecasting error. You're not going to stock out as much, and you're going to have a lean thinking organization. So now I don't have excess inventory. I don't have excess safety stocks. So now my inventory overhead goes down, right? My inventory holding costs go down. Now I don't have to borrow as much money from my banks. So you see how the costs just go down just by the simple action of communicating with my supplier. Communication can save me millions. But people don't do it. They don't trust the suppliers.
Yeah, well, it sounds like there's a whole psychology behind it.
It is. You hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head. And I share a story with one of my fellow professors that I work with in the spring, and he got his master's in marketing, and he got his PhD in psychology. I shared the story on one of my podcasts, and he got his master's in marketing, his PhD in psychology, and he said, "Well, first off, I got my PhD because I like psychology, but if you think about it, what's marketing? You're trying to get in the mind of the
Persuasion.
consumer.
Yeah.
You're getting in the mind of the consumer, right?"
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, I've never thought of it this way. You can kind of take that same mindset, that psychological mindset, and flip it on a supplier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure
You can say,
has a huge purpose.
right. You can say, okay, I'm going to share this data with you. You have to guarantee me that you're going to give me my raw materials when I want them.
Mm-hmm.
I say, what more do you want? What more do you want from me? Because if you don't, someone else will.
Mm-hmm.
And these massive companies like SpaceX, that's how they operate. But it's mostly, I won't say all bark, it's mostly bark, because they go through this whole entire long certification process and finding these suppliers, because you're manufacturing a raw material that's going to go into space.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not many suppliers that can supply that, but they still throw that out there to say, if you can't give me this by this certain date, I'll find somebody else to do it.
Hmm.
Where the reality is, no, not really. Not really. But that's where that psychological aspect comes into play, where if you remove all of those threats, you remove all of those communications, if you just simply share the data with your suppliers, if you just simply trust your suppliers. And that's where this whole supplier relationship management discussion comes into play. Where just as customer relationship management, you've heard of Salesforce and things like that, where you're going to log all the sales history and see all the sales interactions and send out these email blasts to all my customers through Salesforce. There's supplier relationship management applications as well, where the suppliers can log into this portal. Let's just say a Salesforce version, a Salesforce flavor for supplier relationship management. And they can see all my inventory levels in real time, because it's a portal, but it's a portal from my ERP system. Mm-hmm. So they're getting real-time data as soon as that inventory gets decremented. So now they can be proactive in, again, scheduling their production to give me my parts whenever I need it. So essentially, there should be no excuse for you not to meet my demands whenever I cut that purchase order. Mm-hmm. And also, you can also have a supplier scorecard within the supplier relationship management applications, where they know at any given point in time where they're stacking up. And in some supplier scorecards, you see everyone else's. You don't see their details, but you can see where you stack up in terms of on-time delivery, in terms of quality, in terms of parts per million and things like that. It's a ranking.
It's like all a social pressure.
From my ERP system, so it's direct feeds. All I'm doing is mapping, and I can give the supplier anything they want to see, because it's all in this system. It's all on this page. I'm just porting it over to this page. That's all it is. So I mean, yes, it's pressure, but if you meet those demands, if I'm giving you the data, I'm giving you the data. I'm trusting.
Well, it's not bad pressure. I mean, it's effective pressure.
Right. It's effective pressure, but like I said, the tools are there, but not many people use them. And that has typically been a huge push whenever I was in consulting full time, and it has been a differentiator in the industry. I have had clients come out of nowhere just by using the data. I said, it's at your disposal. It's right here. Why are you not using it? Yeah, you complain. Yeah, you complain about me sending my invoices. My invoice from last month, I just paid for that right here. I just saved you that today. I said, but you just have to use the data. But it comes down to this, and that's my project. That was my project management role, and it comes down to adoption. It comes down to explaining the why. For these organizations. So again, that's supplier relationship management. So in your case, Lisa, in your case, like what would be a supplier relationship management tool within higher education, for example?
Oh, well, all kinds of things. I don't know. You mean supplies and just what makes the organization run?
Yeah. So would you? Because all right. Let me back up. There are different levels of supplier relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a transactional supplier relationship where I just purchase parts. I really don't care about collaborating with you. I don't care about talking to you. I just want parts when I need them. And you have that collaborative supplier relationship where I want to work with you and I want you to work with my R&D and you tell me how we can improve our product. So perfect.
Okay. So like
go ahead.
Office supplies are transactional. I don't care where they come from, where the paper comes from. Maybe the collaborative, is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Relationship would be, and it actually wasn't higher ed. I'm in high school, elementary.
I said education, right? Or I said higher ed.
You said higher ed.
But
it's the same. So education. So I suppose. I don't know. The school does a lot of construction, capital projects.
There you go.
So those are very delicate, valuable relationships that are very expensive, very technical.
Yes. So that would be a collaborative supplier relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'll build a building that's going to be a 1.5 to 2 year project, for example, right? And then you have a strategic supplier relationship, where it's a long-term 10-year supply relationship. So I could say, like cafeteria, like if you have,
those contracts are long.
Right. So that's a strategic relationship, long-term relationship between the institution and the provider of
exactly.
Yep. So Yvette, what about you? What else, Lisa?
Oh no, I'm just thinking about there are just so many, and some of them are a little bit of both, if that's possible.
Yeah, it could be. Like I said,
a little bit of strategic plus a little bit of collaborative. We could fire.
What would be an example of that?
Well, if the contractor who's doing a multi-million-dollar project, there's definitely the collaboration, but if something goes wrong, they're strategic in that there isn't the allegiance to them. It would have to pivot to somebody who knew what they were doing, so you kind of still have to evaluate. It's not a done deal, even though it's collaborative.
Okay. Yvette, what about you? Do you have some examples?
Yeah, I think in the line of work that we do, all of our supplier and vendor relationships are collaborative because we work with a lot of capital projects. So we have different vendors that we have to work collaboratively together for, on projects that could last a year, 2 years, and we have those reoccurring relationships because we're all on contract and usually it's the same length of the term. So most of the relationships are collaborative, but we do have those transactional relationships, like when we order office supplies or cleaning supplies and things like that, where there's not a lot of communication,
Right.
Or collaboration. We just kind of send them a list of things that we want, and we get them when we get them.
Right. Right. Dina, what about you?
I mean, we work a lot with grants, and so those contracts are collaborative. But as far as, again, as the office supplies and stuff, no, that isn't. Or I'm not too sure, actually, as far as that side of the higher education goes. But I know, like I said, we work with a lot of grants, so I'm sure there has to be a lot of collaboration to make sure that the people that we contract abide by the grants and do their work accordingly.
Right. Right.
Because if they go, off the grant or do something that's not written within the contracts, then the college should get into a lot of trouble.
Right.
So for like expansion, or when we build a building or maker space, improvements, anything of that nature.
Okay. Perfect. I'm looking for one slide, one presentation that kind of outlines everything. Let's see here.
And then I have a question about the simulation.
Go ahead.
So I heard it's challenging, but can you tell us a little bit how you mentioned last week, it is very different from the MyLab simulations, Pearson. So is it just, like you said, it's just not as friendly, or is it broader?
It's
What didn't you like?
No, I was talking about the forecasting simulation at another institution.
Oh, that we're not doing. Okay.
Yes. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with this one.
Okay.
Actually, I like this one, to be honest.
Do you think it's entertaining? I thought my lab Pearsons were sort of entertaining.
Anything with supply chain, I think, is entertaining.
Okay, I'm asking.
So, is there any other question?
That was it. I don't know. I just wanted to mention it.
Okay. So the last thing we're going to talk about is I created a presentation for another institution where we talk about supply relationships. And one of the biggest misconceptions that we talk about is supplier performance management. And I think week 5, we're going to talk about Lean Six Sigma. And Lean Six Sigma, continuous improvement, total quality management, is typically associated with internal processes, but these performance improvement initiatives also go into from a supplier perspective. And again, it comes down to collaboration with the supplier. It comes down to communication with the supplier. Okay. So with continuous improvement, we are always looking to improve quality among our raw materials, for example, right? So how we improve raw materials, we go to the source. We go, which is the supplier, right? In terms of lean, the objective of lean is to reduce waste. Reduce waste from a activity perspective, reduce waste from an inventory perspective, reduce waste from a movement perspective. If we're going to reduce waste from an inventory perspective, we're going to have to work with our supplier. If we can reduce our lead times, which is our time that from the time we place our order with a supplier to the time that it arrives at our facility, we can reduce our inventory levels. Right? If the supplier ensures high quality products from their facility, we can reduce waste from our organization. We can reduce waste from an inventory perspective. We can reduce waste from an activity perspective, because if they're ensuring that all their products they send to us are high quality, now we do not have to perform the activity of an inspection, because they certify that every single product is of quality, of our quality within our specifications.
Mhm.
Now, that also goes into the Six Sigma, which is a statistical approach, management science, and that is that approach to, that podcast is on fire right now. I'm just saying, it's a good one. But I'm getting LinkedIn notifications like crazy. But the Six Sigma approach is a statistical approach to ensure high quality. You're going to hear 3.4 defects per million opportunities within Six Sigma. So, and I'll also say that Six Sigma is kind of a foundation where a lot. What, somebody's leaving?
Yvette had to go.
Okay. So Six Sigma is kind of a definition or a foundation where Six Sigma is not achievable within most industries because of the cost associated with reaching only 3.4 defects per million opportunities. Six Sigma is only applicable within aerospace, SpaceX, for example,
Mm-hmm.
or healthcare surgeries.
Hmm.
I could have more than 3.4 defects per million opportunities in shipments to your high school, for example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not going to shut down your high school if I misship the wrong product.
No.
If I miss an O-ring on a SpaceX rocket,
Yeah, no, that's catastrophic.
that's a problem, right? If I
Wait, so what
forget
percentage is that? Six Sigma would be, it's how many parts per what?
3.4 parts
def-
for
defect.
3.4 defects per million opportunities.
Okay.
And again, it's in most cases it's not realistic. It's not worth it.
So what is it usually? What's the defect rate
So
average?
I think 3 to 4 sigma. It's based on the industry. 3 to 4 sigma is the norm. I forget the exact number.
Oh, but that gives me some comparison.
Yeah. So because it's going to increase the cost for you to achieve that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only, like I said, it's only applicable within like healthcare or in aerospace.
It's so interesting. Right. So that's chapter 5?
Yes.
Or week 5, whatever.
Yes, 6 7 yes is the final week, correct.
Module 5. We're supposed to call them modules.
Module 5, correct. So again, the different types of supply relationships that we talk about: transactional, collaborative, and strategic.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that transactional supply relationship is essentially saying that I just want my parts and I want them when I need them, when I ask for them. That's all I care about. Don't call me. Just send my parts.
I don't want to talk.
Right?
Don't talk to me.
I just want
okay.
parts. And then that collaborative relationship is exactly what you're talking about. Those long-term contracts, those $1 million building initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And then finally, that strategic relationship is that shared vision. So you both have skin in the game. It's going to be a win-win. You both celebrate the successes. You both encounter the drawbacks and the
wallow
failures.
In the despair. Okay.
Yes. So that's that long-term strategic relationship. And then again, that's what we talk about. And we talked about that supplier relationship management tool that will give that supplier that real-time visibility of the applications. And then the supplier scorecard can be a part of that supplier relationship management tool. Okay. So that's all about supplier relationships, supplier relationship management, and project management. As you have begin to go through the content, do you have any questions on anything?
For this week,
Yes, for this week.
this
correct.
module.
Yes.
I don't have questions. I have to review everything. I mean, there's a lot, but
Yes.
I get all the acronyms. There are a lot of acronyms, but
Yes, there are a lot of acronyms in
It's
the
like-
industry. You are right about that.
I know every industry has its acronyms, but
This one takes the cake.
I think I need flashcards or something. Yeah.
But I mean, those are very helpful. You know,
I know, and they're second nature to you. I know, but
I'll tell you the truth. I've like created like little sentences. So for example, for project management, you know, if you look at the project management phases, you know, the project management phases can be the initiate, plan, execute, monitor and control, and close. Right? Those 5.
initiate,
the
plan,
thing
execute, monitor, and close.
The thing you can remember is I plan every meeting carefully.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
There's your project management phases.
That's
There you
helpful.
go.
Yeah, I'll make little sentences.
Make little sentences. That's how you do it. That's how you understand it. That's what I did in undergrad. And that little sentence started in undergrad, 14 years ago, and I still use today.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's a good study tip.
So I mean, that goes for anything within industry as you're progressing throughout this program, as you're progressing in certification programs and things like that. So I mean, that's little tricks that you'll pick up.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from Dina or Carrie?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
All right. You have a great night. If you have any questions, please send me a text message or send me an email.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you very much. Have a good evening.
All right. You as well.
Okay. Bye, guys. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.